All right, I am pumped to be joined as we are every single week by the Hall of Famer John Smoltz. John, series has shifted to New York. You are on the call for Dodgers Mets. How are we doing? How are you doing?
You know what? I'm anticipating an electric environment. Last year, Philadelphia was as loud as I could imagine. But when you haven't been in the playoffs and the expectations that the Mets fans have had for a while, I think it's going to be even louder tonight.
Yeah, I am pumped to watch that unfold. Let's start there with that series. You're up there, you're up close and personal in this series. First two games went very differently. Dodgers win in grand fashion in game one. Mets get out quick and big in game two. Gets a little closer, but really hold on and win by quite a few runs there. So two very different games, but we're sitting at 1-1 as this series shifts. What's been your big takeaway from the first two games of this series?
Yeah, we've seen this series, especially the Dodgers, without their ability to have four starters go and just, pencil them in. They're having to be magicians and using pitchers in situations that normally in the regular season you would never do. And the same can be said for the Mets. Both teams, they're starting pitching in the beginning of the game. And in the case of the Dodgers, we know it was all relievers. They didn't get off to a good start. It changed the tempo of the game, it changed the narrative of the series. And I think when you start thinking about the quantity that the Mets have, you start shifting your belief to say, hey, they're set up better.
Mhm.
But it comes down to executing early. And both teams jumped out to big leads. And I'm sure Dave Roberts had a different plan in mind for game two than what happened with the grand slam and the 5 runs in
Yeah.
the second.
I talked about it yesterday, and I'm interested in your thoughts on it as one of the greatest postseason pitchers, starting pitchers in history. When you see a bullpen game happening in the playoffs, and it has worked in for the Dodgers might not be here if it weren't for their bullpen game against the Padres, and it didn't work in game two. I'm typically of the belief, look, if you're going to throw seven pitchers, somebody's going to be off. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just the nature of the business. Somebody's going to come in and not be on their A game. And in the sense for the Dodgers in game two, that was knack. Gives up 5 earned in 2 innings. That's pretty much ball game over. So when you're seeing that happening, when you're seeing a bullpen game in the National League Championship Series, what's going through your head?
Well, I think it wasn't a desperation game. So that changes the narrative of who you use.
Hmm.
I would argue that if the Dodgers lost that first game, you'd see different pitchers pitching in that second
Interesting.
game. So a longer series allows you to use guys, and maybe you want to win every game, but there's going to be some you don't win. And that just didn't work for the Dodgers. They didn't have a couple guys that maybe you thought would be in there based on the usage. That's the problem. Now you have three in a row. And what shifts now is they're going to have to use their bullpen all 3 games. It's not even a question. It's
Yep.
just how many guys are they able to go back to back to back. So that's the position the Dodgers are in. They're a very good ball club, but they have some holes in the usage and who they can do. So that's not the same case for the Mets. Now, the Mets could get their starter blown out in the first 3 innings. That
Yep.
would change that too. But they typically have 5, 6, 7 innings waiting out of their starter and a shorter bullpen.
Let's talk for a second, Shohei Ohtani. As I mentioned, you're there, you're seeing what's going on. I actually love, obviously, we talk a lot of pitching. I love talking to you about hitting. I think you have a brilliant mind when it comes to the hitting side of things. And I'm interested in asking what you're seeing from Shohei, or is it just a minimal sample size? But what we're seeing right now is with runners in scoring position, he is 16 for his last 19. That's almost unheard of. But on the
Yeah.
contrary, with no runners on, he's over. What are you seeing a difference in approach? Are you saying it's just a small sample size and that's the nature of the business? What do you think?
I think it has to do with stress and the pitchers not having as much. They found a couple ways to get him out in the postseason. The Padres exposed it a little bit. Everybody has a weakness, and unfortunately, with nobody on, it has been slow away and swing and miss. So that's going to change. He's going to get a hit with nobody on. We can be assured of that. But when runners are on, now you got the uh-oh factor, and pitchers have not been able to make the pitches they want with nobody on, with the idea that he can only beat you with a home run and 1 run. So I think some of that has to do with the pitchers knowing that the lineup behind him with runners on base make it much more difficult to pitch around him or effectively get him out the same way.
Yeah. Tonight, game three, you'll be there. on the call. We got Walker Buehler against Luis Severino, 1-1 series. Buehler, obviously injured for a while, comes back not good this year, about a 6 ERA. And then in the playoffs, his start didn't go great, did settle in a little bit. Severino, on the other side, has had a pretty good year. What are you expecting tonight from a pitching perspective with Walker Buehler versus Luis Severino?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm a big fan of both, but I love the way Severino goes about his business. He's shown he's been healthy. He's got tremendous movement on his fastballs. He's got a killer breaking ball, and he's got all the recipe for success to give you 6, 7 innings. On the other hand, Buehler, when he's right, he's one of the best up in the zone and curveball pitchers, and he just has not been able to finish hitters off the way
Yep.
that he has before. And I suspect that will change next year. Don't get me wrong. 2 Tommy John surgeries are not fun to deal with, but he's going to gut you a performance, meaning he's going to go out there and give you everything he has. He's going to attempt to pitch like he's never been hurt. And we'll find out if he's able to do a better job with 2 strikes. Now, his defense did not help him, but he was able to pitch 5 innings, believe it or not, in that kind of game. So I think we're going to see the Dodgers go right away. As far as if the game is close, I think they're not going to allow Walker Buehler to get in much trouble. On the other hand, you'll have more patience and you'll be more reliant on your starting pitcher because that's the formula that works for the Mets.
All right, big one there. Game 3 in Queens tonight. John will be on the call. John, let's switch to the other series briefly. I want to talk about the Yankees are up 2-0. They're sitting where they want to be. They won the division. Everything is gone seemingly well for them this year. But I talked a lot yesterday about the New York Yankees lineup and Austin Wells hitting fourth behind Aaron Judge. Austin Wells is 4 for his last 69, right around there. Should they shift the lineup around and get some different protection for Aaron Judge? It's driving me crazy a little bit because you look on deck with Aaron Judge up and you say, "Oh, this feels like a no-brainer. We're going to throw our bet, not necessarily walk him every time, but we're not going to let Judge hurt us because it's not Giancarlo Stanton on deck. It's not a hitter that's hot right now. It's Austin Wells, who has had a good year, but right now is sort of an automatic out up at the plate. It's driving me a little crazy. Would you change the lineup at all, or would you keep with what has been working?"
Well, I think part of that is going to be because of what the Guardians can bring out of the bullpen. And I know the day and age where you set up your lineup to beat the starter is not the case anymore.
Yeah.
You have to set up your lineup worried about the great arms that are going to come in. And if you give some of these right-handed nasty pitchers a lane where you've got 2 or 3 righties in a row, it just makes it easier for them to come in unless you're willing to pinch hit. So I understand what you're saying, and it makes perfect sense. That would be about 10, 15 years ago. I think now managers are worried about the stuff that comes out of the pen. You know, it used to be, and I've seen this whole shift, work the starter, get him out of the game, get into the pen. Now it's you better get the starter because we don't want to get in the pen. But at the same time, the sooner you get in the pen, the more look, the more works, the worse it gets for them. So it's a tug of war on how to set up a lineup now, not necessarily who could protect who. It's what gives the other manager not the easiest road to make those decisions. So I really believe that's part of it. Maybe, just maybe, you could move up Rizzo. Maybe if he looks like he's swinging the bat. So that's, I think, what goes through the mind of a manager when they're setting up a lineup going, I know I got to protect Aaron Judge, but in a perfect world, this is why I'm switching it up a little bit.
Last night we saw the Guardians intentionally walk Soto. This was a bold move from Stephen Vogt. Intentionally walked Juan Soto to load the bases for Aaron Judge. Now, obviously, bold move. I think in the moment it was the right move, and also it ended up working out. Sack fly, not a ton of damage there. But if you're on the mound, because we saw Vogt in the dugout put up the 4 fingers, I'm not so sure they even discussed with the pitcher how he wanted to handle it. If you're on the mound, and that decision comes down, hey, we're intentionally walking Soto to bring up Aaron Judge. You are out there. What's going through your head?
Well, what's going through my head, that means that my manager likes the next matchup better than the one right there, right? And I think Soto, that's what he brings to the table. He is having and will have continued great at-bats. Judge has been vulnerable. What you can't do I think this is the hard part. You can't think of the Aaron Judge in the regular season because then you'll start flipping out a little bit going, oh, shoot. You've got to be able to pitch to the pressure that Aaron Judge has on him. Fair or not, he's got 10 times more pressure on him in the postseason than any other player in that lineup. Just because what he did in the regular season, people think was easily go into the postseason. So I kind of understand that strategy. It's still dangerous. That's what makes the New York Yankees an interesting ball club, because the top of their lineup, if they get nasty, they're going to have a chance to win the World Series, because it's the same kind of narrative that the Dodgers kind of have with the top of their lineup and the explosiveness that they could have.
Yeah. Well, you're on the call for Mets Dodgers. Don't want to ask you about that series, but I'll ask you before you get away here. Series is shifting back to Cleveland. It's 2-0 Yankees. Do you think the series gets back to New York? You think the Guardians can win a couple games there in Cleveland?
I really do. For this reason, they're going to be pressed to go earlier to their pen, and they've done it. They did it in the Detroit series when they had to. The Guardians are that, and I mean this is not a disrespectful. This is an actual complimentary. They're like that nasty gnat that will never go away, that's flying around you, and you cannot do anything about it. They found a way with their roster and their payroll to put the best form of a team, and you got to give them credit. And that's kind of the manager's way. You just know they've flown under the radar until now. They haven't, and they're just going to be a tough out. So I actually do think they're going to find a way to bring it back to New York.
John, always a lot of fun, man. Appreciate you for joining, and enjoy Game 3 tonight there in Queens.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Of course. See ya. All right, I wanted to thank John Smoltz again for joining us here on Flippin' Bats. Always a lot of fun. And, I was thinking about it when we were talking about the Soto intentional walk to get to Judge, and, how dynamic those two are back-to-back in the lineup. Obviously, Judge locked up there for a long time. Soto's going to be the big talk of the offseason. Do they give him a blank check? And every time I think about this, obviously watch a lot of Tigers baseball, root for the Tigers. Juan Soto is the same age as Spencer Torkelson. And every time I talk Soto and how good he is and think about what teams are doing to pitch to him, I just think how crazy it is that he is still only 25 years old and has already had the career he's had and is going to make, I don't know, over $500 million around there. Just absolutely insane. But always a lot of fun catching up with John. Do it every single week here on the show. Hope you all appreciate it. I certainly do. The dude has so much baseball knowledge, and to be on the call for these games, it's just really cool to be able to do. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you listen. Follow along. Apple, Spotify, wherever. You can also watch every single thing we do on our YouTube channel, Flippin' Bats Pod. Every episode comes out there. Leave a comment. I'll comment back. Like talking to you guys in the comments, and follow along on all social media at Flippin' Bats Pod anywhere. But Game 3 tonight in Queens. Yankees Guardians are off. It's a travel day there, and then those next 3 happen. So the next 2 days after today, we will get multiple games each day, which is going to be a lot of fun. We'll be back later in the week with another episode. Appreciate you all as always. Enjoy the game tonight. Enjoy the games the next couple days. And remember, find your bat and flip it. Peace.